Okay, be honest with me. Have you ever offered a few words of encouragement to a drooping fern, or maybe apologized after completely forgetting to water your succulents? We usually just laugh it off, right? It's a quirky human habit. But what if there's actually more going on in that pot than we realize? Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into the wild history and the absolute mind-bending modern science of plant perception to figure out what's really happening.
For centuries, dating all the way back to ancient Aristotle, the basic assumption was that plants were just static, insentient biological machines, unable to feel, unable to react intelligently. But today, modern laboratory findings are aggressively challenging those ancient assumptions. We're seeing a serious blurring of the lines between simple biological reactions and complex, almost social behaviors.
Section 1. Telepathy and Polygraphs.
Now, to really understand where a lot of our modern plant myths come from, we got to rewind back to the highly romanticized era of the 1970s. The idea of plant sentience completely exploded into pop culture thanks to a massive phenomenon, Peter Tompkins and Christopher Bird's 1973 book, The Secret Life of Plants. This book heavily romanticized our relationship with flora. It boldly claimed that plants could read our minds, feel our emotions, and even pick up on human intentions from all the way across a room.
A lot of this was based on the popularized work of Cleve Baxter. He was a lie detector expert who literally hooked up polygraph machines to his office philodendrons. Baxter claimed his plants would faint from excess stress or show these massive spikes on the polygraph when he merely thought about burning their leaves. He even claimed they reacted to the death of tiny brine shrimp in boiling water nearby. But let's evaluate this from a modern scientific point of view. When we compare these claims to standard biological responses, mainstream science pushes back hard. Modern biologists widely consider those polygraph spikes to be basic artifacts of electrical resistance and moisture changes in the room, definitely not emotional panic.
And the 70s generated some even more sensational claims. A researcher named Marcel Vogel said that through yoga and Zen meditation, a human could focus their consciousness and actually tune in to a plant's bioelectrical potential. Meanwhile, reports coming out of the Soviet Union featured experiments where a geranium was allegedly tortured with acid and needles, prompting the plant to register pure horror on instruments whenever the torturer approached. There were even wild claims of bean plants using instrumental hands and legs to request water. Let's be real, it was essentially science fiction disguised as botany.
Section 2. Real Chemical Communication.
Okay, let's sieve out that pseudoscience and look at the actual mind-bending reality of how plants communicate. Because while they aren't reading our minds, they absolutely are talking to each other. Tracing the scientific roller coaster of this field, the modern story really starts in 1983. The first talking tree papers were published, showing that willows and sugar maples being eaten by bugs would somehow warn nearby untouched trees to start pumping out bug-repelling chemicals. Initially, this was electrifying news, but it was rapidly shot down in the late 80s as statistically flawed. Researchers who studied it were basically treated as a lunatic fringe. Today, however, the field is staging a highly controlled, rigorous comeback in modern labs.
And that comeback has brought some undeniable data with it. Ecologist Richard Carban, who studies sagebrush up in the Sierra Nevada, notes that the evidence for plant communication via airborne chemical warnings is now as sure as something in science can possibly be.
To put that into perspective, out of 48 rigorous modern studies of plant communication, 40 of them definitively confirm that plants can detect airborne signals from their neighbors and ramp up their own defensive chemical weapons in response. The debate simply isn't about whether plants can sense biochemical messages anymore. They absolutely can.
So what exactly is this alien language? It's made of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. And you've definitely experienced this yourself. You know that fresh, pleasant smell of cut grass in the summer? Well, to us it smells like a weekend chore, but biologically speaking, that smell is a frantic, airborne distress signal. Plants use these VOC cocktails to warn their neighbors of danger. In some fascinating cases, like with wild lima beans or corn seedlings, they emit specific chemicals that actually attract parasitic wasps to come in and brutally attack the very caterpillars that are eating their leaves. Talk about a brilliant defense strategy.
Section 3. Electrical signals without brains.
The story gets even deeper when we move from chemical whispers in the air to internal electrical pulses. Think about it. How does a leaf at the very top of a plant know a leaf at the bottom is being eaten? Well, plant signaling pioneer Ted Farmer discovered a spectacular voltage-based system. Using microelectrodes on a lab plant called Arabobasis, he observed at the exact moment an Egyptian cotton leafworm starts chewing,
Voltage changes shoot outward through the plant's tissue in mere seconds. This electrical surge tells the rest of the plant to start accumulating defensive jasmonic acid far away from the actual bite site.
Now, when you hear the words electrical signals, your mind probably jumps straight to animal nerves, right? And there's a good reason for that. The genes involved in transmitting these electrical signals in plants actually produce channels regulating charged ions. These are evolutionary analogs to the exact receptors animals use to relay sensory signals. They share a deep, common ancestor. But, and this is a massive but for modern science, Farmer warns we must not do an injustice to this fascinating alien biology by forcing it into human terms. Plants do not have neurons, they do not have brains.
Yet, even without brains, we are seeing astonishingly complex social behaviors. Take the sea rocket. It's a little beach plant from the mustard family. Biologists discovered that these plants actually exhibit kin recognition. When they're planted next to their own siblings, they modify their root growth to be less competitive. They demonstrate actual altruism beneath the soil, saving resources and sharing space with their relatives, all without memory or cognition as we currently understand it.
Section 4. Mainstream science rejects sentience.
So, here is the crucial question. With all these complex electrical and social behaviors, why does mainstream modern biology flatly reject calling plants sentient? Well, the scientific community pushes back for a few very rigorous, specific reasons. First, there is an ever-present risk of anthropomorphic bias, meaning it's incredibly easy for us to project our own human feelings onto basic biological mechanics. Second, plants completely lack neurons and synapses. While they do have electrical channels, we have not found any stable points of neuroanatomical similarity to animals. Therefore, using a term like neurobiology for plants is highly contentious. Basically, our entire definition of cognition is built on animal models, and those models simply don't fit this leafy green world.
As philosopher Peter Godfrey Smith elegantly puts it, quote, "It is too easy to be influenced by our own case." This perfectly captures what we call the vertebrate-based bias. Because we experience the world through a central nervous system, we naturally assume any complex reaction, like a plant bracing for a bug attack or recognizing a sibling, must involve some kind of internal felt experience. But science requires us to draw a hard line, separating brilliant biological programming from actual sentience.
Section 5. The Philosophical Questions.
But even with science urging extreme caution, the sheer scale of the discoveries being made forces us to ask some really big questions. If we were to ever definitively establish that plants are sentient, it would completely flip our understanding of life upside down. As researcher Sidney Carles Diamante points out, phenomena like kin recognition force us to ask, do individual plants have a sense of self? If a plant can direct its root growth and actively influence the behavior of insects, is it an agent making choices? The philosophical and even ethical implications regarding how we define life, knowledge, and experience would become incredibly profound.
So what does this all mean for us? When that sagebrush sends out a chemical warning, or that sea rocket purposely makes room for its sibling, can we really attribute knowledge to them? Can plants form concepts, or are we simply witnessing the breathtaking, brainless, brilliant mechanics of an alien biology that we are only just beginning to decode? The next time you walk past a freshly mowed lawn or remember to water that houseplant, keep this in mind. They might not be feeling your love, but they are absolutely tuned into the world in ways we are only just starting to comprehend.